Let's take a look back in history today and remember the very first, and now forgotten, Porsche that influenced many Porsche designs later on. The Porsche Type 114. After Porsche founded his own design office in Stuttgart in 1930, he started to work on projects for Wanderer, part of the Auto Union. Later on, in 1934, he received the task to build a people's car, directly from Hitler himself. Important was that the price of the car shouldn't exceed 1,000 Reichsmark, so every family is able to afford a car. So, the Beetle was a state project and heavily subsidized. Porsche and his son Ferry, now his assistant, already saw the potential of the platform during the development phase and suggested to build a sports car based on the Beetle to the German state office. The request was rejected immediately because all available Beetle parts should be used to build Beetles and not sports cars. So the Porsche design office said, if we cannot use Beetle parts anyway to create a sports car, we will redesign the whole concept to be even more competitive. And this would be Porsche's first own car. So, based on the Beetle concept, they designed a mid-engine car and placed as many cylinders as possible between passengers and rear axle. The result was a mid-engined V10 sports car with 1.5-liter displacement. For more performance, this engine was water-cooled. We can see air intake and front radiator. To make space for the engine, the gearbox sat behind the rear axle, something they designed already for the Auto Union Grand Prix car. They then kept the crank front axle with torsion bars and swing axle at the rear. In the wind tunnel, they changed the Beetle body to a more aerodynamic shape that offered a smaller frontal area and less drag for better top speed. In the end, the economical situation and the total focus on the Beetle project impeded the project and the car was never built. But the experiences Porsche gained with it were not for nothing. A year later, the political partnership between Germany and Italy should be celebrated with an endurance race between both capitals, Berlin and Rome. For that purpose, the German state now finally allowed Porsche to develop a sports car with Beetle parts. The result was the Porsche Type 64, internally 60K10. Type 60 was the internal code for the VW Beetle project. K10 meant aluminium body built by coach builder Reuter in Zuffenhausen, Porsche's neighbors. The Type 64 went back to Beetle parts and hence had the engine behind the rear axle again, and was air-cooled. The body was almost identical to the body design for the Type 114. Timed road tests were done on the Autobahn A2 between Berlin and Wolfsburg, the VW factory. And by the way, it's the same track where the Bugatti Chiron drove more than 400 km per hour in public traffic in summer 2021. The Type 64 reached an average speed of 130 km per hour or 81 miles per hour and was a promising car for the race scheduled in September 1939. But due to the beginning of the Second World War, this race never happened. When Porsche's son Ferry started building his own car after the Second World War, while his father was a French prisoner of war, it was based on the VW Beetle again. Of course, he used the experiences they gathered before the war and designed the first ever Porsche 356 with a mid-engined layout, like he and his father wanted it for the first Porsche in 1938. But due to the difficult situation after the war, they had to work with the components they had available, and that was the 4-cylinder air-cooled Beetle engine. To further simplify the production, they also re-adapted the Beetle's rear engine concept for the second Porsche 356 they built. But the wish for a mid-engined race car stayed alive and finally resulted in the Porsche 550 Spider in 1953, the father of all future mid-engine Porsche prototypes. The introduction of the Porsche Boxster in 1996 brought a mid-engined mass-production Porsche back on the road. And until today, Porsche tries to keep the performance of the 718 below the 911, which is the successor of the rear-engined Beetle concept. The fact that Porsche, if he had full freedom to build his own sports car, in 1938 decided to design a water-cooled mid-engined V10 makes the legendary Carrera GT of 2003 even more special. I hope you liked this little dive into history and see you at the next video.